I am here with my special guest, Kaitlin Monnahan. She is the head of North America marketing at Seismic. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Caleb. I'm super happy to be here and to talk with you today.
Let's kick us off this way. I'd love for you just to give us a quick understanding of who Seismic is, and in your perspective, what do you get paid to do? They give you a check. You are responsible for what? Tell me about that.
Yes, great question. So I've been with Seismic for about 2 years now. We are one of the leaders in the sales enablement category. In my role overseeing North America field marketing, a lot of what we do is centered around pipeline generation. And so when we talk about what we get paid to do, it's really to make sure that we're supporting our field teams as the marketing conduit to make sure that we have, ample pipeline coverage, that we're generating enough pipeline as a cohort across the go-to-market team in order for us to be confident that we'll hit our growth goals.
And what is there anything that in the 2 years you've been there that you've learned about yourself that you had no idea about yourself heading into the opportunity?
I think, great question. When I first joined here, this was actually my first opportunity working in-house at a company. I had come agency side for the last 10 plus years of my career. So I think when we think about marketing leadership, right, of course you can have that and assume that position on the agency side of the house. But I think one thing that's really surprised me in a very positive way coming into an organization like Seismic is the ability to really take on that leadership role, build relationships internally, both within the marketing organization, but across the go-to-market and our executive team. And I think that's been one of the most, surprising things that I wasn't necessarily anticipating coming into this role and that I've been given the chance to do.
That's awesome. I'm curious about outside of things like reports and data driven information that you can look at and see on, hey, are we on track? Are we not on track? Do you rely on anything personally within your gut, within your heart? Whereas when you're driving home after work or you shut your laptop down, you can tell I did a good job today or I didn't do a good job. What do you rely on that's more gut felt?
Yeah, I think it comes back to this notion that I live and breathe by, which is I love building relationships and I love being at a company where that's celebrated. And so once you're able to get in and start building relationships, spending time, being really, really, making time to get to know the different players across the organization, both professionally and personally, understand some of those things that, we think about when we're onboarding, right? How do we like to be coached? How do we like to be communicated with? Right. What, challenges us. Once you start to understand kind of the fundamentals of what makes up certain people, it's really one of those blessings because it gives trust, right? And I think from that, feedback is a gift, and people are much more willing once you've built the relationship on a really human level to provide, that sort of feedback to you, whether it be positive or critical in a good way. And so I think when I think about beyond the numbers, right, if we're doing a good job, if I'm doing a good job, a lot of what, those little things that I get come from understanding it and receiving some of that feedback from not only my team, but from the rest of the organization, as well as, up to our leadership team.
That's awesome. And based on the power of feedback that you've expressed and the passion around people and understanding what makes them tick and how to bring the full color out of them, you've had the recent opportunity to bring some new people onto your team. Can you talk about two things? Number one, how do you navigate waters in leading a marketing function when you have a very, very lean support team and you got to flip a different hats? And then talk to me about the transition that you've experienced recently in bringing, first of all, finding and then bringing on the right people and being confident that you have people in their zones of genius. And what does that now allow you to do from a team leadership standpoint? So it's a tough question, but tell me about this.
Yeah, great question. I've been living and breathing it for the last quarter and a half. I think when it comes to being able to still drive against those goals and those numbers that we talked about while operating with a very lean team, and which was the case for the last quarter or so, again, it goes back to that relationship piece, right? Making sure that we're setting expectations early, and often with leadership across the organization to make sure that they understand, right? There's always a why behind something.
Yeah.
So we're investing time up front to make sure that we're getting the right, folks in on the team that are going to be able to set the foundation to grow the business. That does not happen overnight. Obviously, it takes some time. And so I think once you're able to really talk about those things early on with your leaders, they're going to be advocating for you as well. So while you're not able to tackle as much with a lean team, you're going through this process, which takes up a good amount of time. It still feels like you have that, air coverage and that understanding, the backing from the greater org. So that's what I've experienced in regard to your first question. I think the second question, it's, we have a really incredible recruiting team here at Seismic. We're lucky to be, the leader in our space. I think more than anything, this is a wonderful time to join the company and help fuel our next phase of growth that we're on. And so, finding the right talent, we've been really, really lucky to get a lot of interest from folks that know what they're doing and have years of experience doing it and are, coming in and, share that eagerness that I have, that I think the rest of the marketing team has and the go-to-market team has on really taking us to the next level. So a lot of work goes into it. I'm really, really thrilled that we have almost, made this team whole. We've got one more that we're hiring for.
Well, once the candidates watch the podcast, I'm sure the right one will come through. But,
yes.
But in being that you talked about being the marketing leader, and I think sometimes when hiring, certain organizations have challenge in that there's not enough interest from quality candidates, so they got to settle. But in your case, has it been challenging in sifting through the likely numerous candidates who have come forward? How did you land on this is the right fit? We're going to make the selection with you. And what goes into that process for you?
Yeah, great question. I think to your point, the influx of interest it kind of blew my expectations out of the water. But it also totally makes sense. I think making sure that we've got, not only the roles and responsibilities completely outlined, but also outside of what they're accountable for from a delivery perspective. I'm also looking at the personality side of the house, right? And I think when we go back and talk about what those kind of criterias were, it helps kind of dwindle, get us down to a smaller cohort based on, just some of those interactions we're having. I think there's a lot of folks that are really excited and, again, eager and want to jump in and want to lead a business segment. And then there's a lot of people that maybe don't, and that's totally okay as well. But I think looking at, both the roles and responsibilities as well as, the eagerness and hungriness to contribute to a growing organization, I think the combination of those two really allowed us to hone in on a smaller subset of folks and ultimately getting the right people to the seat.
And it can be a challenge, I guess, when you are a people-oriented person, not to be too heavily influenced by what folks put forth, because it's hard. And I've been in many situations where I've probably made the wrong hire just based on the fact that they like football too, just like me.
Yeah,
but there's this
right.
cross-section of, do you understand the mission and the accountability? And is that an area where you see yourself passionately thriving in? It has to balance, right?
Yeah, it totally does. And I also think, we're always looking for someone that lives and breathes our values at Seismic. And I think, after multiple conversations, that's very apparent with a lot of people. So that was also another thing that was really important. I also think, kind of going back to a little bit of, working as this one go-to-market team, I think it's important to get different folks at the table during that process across different organizations. Right. So any sort of loop we're interviewing for, at least in the field from a marketing perspective, is also inclusive of, someone on marketing, someone on product marketing, someone in sales, someone in inside sales, customer success. So we're really getting a lot of, diverse thoughts, feedback on the specific candidates and making the decision as a group. It's not my decision, it's our decision.
Yeah, that gives you a good chance to not miss those blind spots that perhaps we have preference towards. That's cool. Now, we had talked once before, and we started digging into this topic that you have a lot of passion around, and maybe that has been a recent thing in terms of defining it as a passion. But we talked about how you guys are in service of enabling this high quality sales team, right? Bringing the right opportunities with the right frequency, and in a way to avoid holding the team accountable to just a bunch of activities, completion, and tactical things. You've drawn close to this concept of holistic as a team go to the market together with a consolidated effort. Talk to me about the shift about the bad side, which was random acts of marketing, accountable to activities completion, to the role you've played in facilitating holistic go-to-market as a team.
Yeah, it's something that's always it is a very passionate topic of mine. I think different marketing departments and field marketing teams are accountable for different things. I think in the old way of doing things, it's marketing, you go drive net new MQLs and net new pipeline, but that's it, right? And
Right.
Stop there. I think now coming into the future and the transformation that we're on is we need to be accountable with our sales teams and our go-to-market for driving the business forward. And so when I think about our remit and how it's transformed and changed, it's really looking at what is the end goal, right? What do we need to go drive from a growth perspective? And then it's working backward from there, right? It's then, okay, are we generating enough as a go-to-market collective based on the accounts that we care most about? Are we nurturing those accounts in an authentic way? Are we making sure that, they're going to be advocates for us as we are for them, right? Looking at things like, do we have enough coverage from, a pipeline perspective as we look quarters in advance? And I think zooming out from that picture, there's of course accountability throughout all the teams. But when we talk about the business and we talk about our attainment toward our ultimate goal, it is now as a collective unit versus marketing's doing this, SDRs are doing this, sales is doing this. It's really that concerted effort. And I think just it pays off immensely. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal. We all want to drive growth for the company and make sure that we're celebrating our customers and turning them into our advocates. And so I think once you kind of pull apart all of the nitpicky activities and stop focusing on those and looking at the bigger goal and how we're achieving that together, that's when you can really win.
When you have different functions like sales and marketing and operations and whatever is applicable, and you have leaders in each of those functions, what are some of the, not prerequisites, but what are some of the things that allow for a setting aside of one's own personal agenda and a coming together with those holistic? Was it a big rallying internal memo from the CEO? Was it like, how does that happen? Because theoretically it makes sense, but in reality with big company and with functional leaders that have their own way and their own vision of success, how do you bring together versus pull apart?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of a natural transformation for us. There's been a lot of great leaders that have, been on at the company for a very long time, coupled with some new leaders that share that similar mentality. And so it kind of was like this aha moment for us, specifically in the field in North America. And again, I think going back to what we were talking about earlier is once you can, it's harder to talk about and get everyone rallied on board if you haven't built the relationship before or established the trust. And so I think, doing the work to do that across everyone that's going to be involved in kind of making a decision on how we're going to continue to transform as a team, that is much easier said once you've established that. And so I think there's just a lot of trust built into to our organization from a marketing perspective, and, coming down for leadership as to, we know what we have to go do, and we're going to go do that in the way that we think is the best. And hopefully, and it should really pay off in the end.
Is there an example where you were really dead set on an approach, on a strategy, but because it didn't fit into the fabric of the holistic unit, you've had to set that aside?
not necessarily set it aside, but I think this is a great example of showcasing the value, right, of a strategy or an idea that doesn't necessarily fit the way that we, had done things or the way that we had been measured in the past. Going beyond, thinking about how you can show the value beyond some of those traditional metrics, right? If we think about wanting to launch something that is, a one-to-one account-based experience strategy or program, beyond, okay, we can generate leads, we can generate pipeline. It's like, have we even penetrated this account, right? Maybe we can show small wins, like we have gotten them engaged. They're reading, they're attending, we're having conversations. So while I think it's important, obviously, to keep these goals in mind, I think there's ways to bring in and show the value within specific examples of, what we think the strategy could do that might not align to how we might be goaled in the past.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense from you that you believe in achieve more with less, not justify your existence through okay, we're getting paid this much to do this many activities or this many things. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction, I feel, is what you believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our remit, right, is we want to be focused on the things that are going to move the needle. So there's no more random acts of marketing. There's no more boiling the ocean. We're hyper focused and targeted on what are the things that we need to do and how can we do those things to the best that we can to help fuel the growth according to our goals. And so that's one of the things we think about and we talk about all the time is, really focusing in, because, this, I think a lot of people know this, it's hard to get away from trying to do it all. When you do it all and there's a 15% of you on 18 different things,
right,
that's not going to be impactful. So really helping the team kind of focus in on what are those 2 to 3 things that we must get right in order for us to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I want to encourage you just to keep being an advocate and a leadership voice for that, because there's so many marketing teams suffering in silence out there because they believe they're being judged by the number of things I can check off my box, and it's creating burnout, it's causing frustration and lack of retention and all these things, where it takes leadership like what you're exemplifying here to say less is more, focus on accountability to the business outcome, not the storytelling elements, the leading indicators, right?
Absolutely.
That's cool. I think as a strong marketing leader, you're probably someone who's willing to be a bit vulnerable. What are your top 1 or 2 marketing challenges right now that you and your team would all mutually agree, like, this is painful?
Yeah. Great question. I think in any growing company or growing marketing organization, which is where we're at now, there's new teams that are coming together, some of which for the first time. We all have similar OKRs, right? The company OKRs, and those are then distilled down. I think one thing that's been challenging that it's an exciting challenge because we get to define it now together is, okay, what does the new rhythm of business look like? How do we work together when we're, driving our kind of ABX field initiatives and we've got a lot of other stuff going on? How can we better connect those dots? And I think that's been something that's been obviously a challenge, but a really good challenge, because in the past it would be, we're operating in silos. We're often doing the same activities, probably targeting the same customers or accounts. Right. How can we complement those initiatives so that we're not, doing the same thing at the same time, but then, leveraging some of the great work that other organizations within the marketing department are doing to then fuel our programs and vice versa. So I would say it's been a challenge, but it's a great challenge because we're able to right now come together to define and figure out how we can be better together.
Yeah.
And I would say probably the second one is going back to my point, is all about, this idea of attribution. And it's something that if anyone has cracked the code on, they would be retired by now. Yeah. It's one of those things that's looming because, we're accountable for getting to our goals, and it's hard to, continue on that one go-to-market team motion where we are still each accountable for a piece of the pie, in which we should be. So figuring out
Yeah.
how we can do the right thing for the business, but still reach our goals is something that I think is always going to be a challenge, but something we're absolutely up for and continue to work toward.
That's the tricky thing, and this is where it comes into reality. If there's a direct attribution mandate, it incentivizes or sets people up to have a mindset of, okay, I'm all for the team goal, but I have to satisfy the direct attribution requirement, so I'm going to do things on my own. But if the attribution hovers higher than that, and it is attribution between a couple data points, which is all in investment into marketing, sales enablement, sales team, and business result, and there's a level of trust there.
Yeah.
But that's hard, because then how do you do performance management? How do you do,
Right. It's the gentle balance, right? I think continuing if there is an accountability from a specific metric,
Yeah.
continuing to think through that and prioritize, but also focus, the other half of your time on doing the right things for the business to show proof of concept.
Right.
Because once you have the data and the research and the results to back up the new thinking and the new way of working, I think kind of you start to see this become less important and the bigger picture become more important. So I think it's all about, getting things in market and piloting things and bringing some of those learnings, again, beyond our traditional kind of metrics to the table, to show, wow, look what we can do and how powerful this is if we're looking at this, as a group.
That's awesome. For you personally, what would you be comfortable enough sharing as what you believe your superpower is as a marketing leader?
I think bringing people together is something that I think would be a superpower of mine. It's something that I love. It's why I'm in marketing and have always been. The relationship building component of watching others shine and succeed and elevating those folks is just something that I'm super passionate about. I want to be setting up the team and my colleagues and my managers to shine and succeed. And so I think being able to not only bring people together to understand kind of, deeper why we do the things that we do and have that kind of empathy for folks, but also, figuring out how we can elevate a lot of the great stuff that's going on that, I'm just one piece of the pie on.
Yeah. That's awesome. And on the flip side of that coin, if you could wave a magic wand and change one area that you consider a weakness as a personal leader or a marketer, whichever way you want to go with it, what would you be willing to admit?
Yeah. I think, the positive also comes with the negatives. I think, because I do enjoy cross collaboration, I love engaging with people. I think, being able to create boundaries has probably been a little bit of a weakness. It's hard, right? When you've got a lot of things that you have to accomplish and go do. And I think that's one thing that I could absolutely get better about is, protecting the priorities first and being able to say no. I think that's something we all struggle with, is the ability to say no. But if you do say no, I've learned and found it's no, but let's think about how this could be prioritized next, or could this be woven into something we're already doing? So as a weakness, I think being able to create those boundaries and saying no is something that I'll probably always have.
It's funny you say that, because there was a question left for you by my previous guest, which is, how do you fulfill your obligation to be the marketing leader while listening to or absorbing the number of different ideas, opinions, do this, please do that, from the peanut gallery or people outside of the tribe of the marketing and sales team? How do you, on one hand, accommodate those things and listen to them, and on the other hand, create rigor in your prioritization? So maybe a little bit more meat on that bone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, looking at what our ultimate goals are is extremely important. Bringing in the data, right, to supplement what those goals are. And then, we have a set of OKRs that we're all driving toward. And we go through an exercise annually and refresh, every half of the year to understand how we're progressing and what we're going to prioritize.
Right.
So I think in general, having a plan, it sounds so simple, but having a plan to say, here are my commitments, here how they ladder up to our organizational OKRs, and here's how they ladder up to what we're accountable for in the field,
right,
allows you to, sign off by everyone, then allows you to use that a little bit as your shield to support with needing to push back on certain things.
Right. So it's not Kaitlin saying no, it's the OKR structure that we've all agreed to at the half year or at the year that's saying not no, but maybe not now, or
maybe not now. Yeah, exactly. And I think, you can easily get bogged down by all these different things and requests. And oftentimes I try to find myself asking or understanding the why behind the requests. And I think once you understand the why, it gives you a lot more insight too, in terms of how we need to approach that going forward.
Totally.
Sometimes people are given directive and you just say, okay, I'll do it. But digging a little bit more to understand the reasoning behind it and how it contributes to what we need to go do is immensely important.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. I guess it does determine who it's coming from, right? CEO says, I need this now. Well, ma'am, the OKRs are anyways, just do it. Okay. Well, that's great. With the formation of this team now coming and already in place, what as a leader of this function and of this team what are your biggest fears about going into this chapter?
Ooh, this is a great question. I think maybe it's not necessarily fear. What keeps me up sometimes is I want to make sure with the new team that people are receiving fulfillment for what they're doing. I want to do my best to be able to provide some of that. And of course, that's not just on me, that's on the organization and that's on the individual to do too.
Right.
My biggest fear, I think, is, being a leader on a team who's feeling not supported or unmotivated or not part of what we're doing together.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't get to that point. So far, that's definitely not where we're going. But I think that is something that, we need to consider as leaders of a team to make sure that we're still providing opportunities for our teams to be able to get excited and grow and feel part of something. So that was probably one of the fears.
Responsibility that you feel. People can get paychecks anywhere, right? And if we see it perhaps as more of a scenario where we get to be a part of a chapter of these people's lives, and we can either contribute meaningfully to that or not.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, I think our company does a really great job of providing opportunity to outside of what traditional opportunity might be. And so that's one thing I've really enjoyed too. And I want to continue to offer to the team is, being really clear on the growth trajectories, of course, but thinking through other things like we're all working in a virtual world for the most part. We're pretty much 100% remote. Can we get together, twice a year in person? What are those things that we can do to fuel excitement and make people feel a part of this team and this camaraderie? Outside of kind of the traditional growth thing. So it's been really nice, in the last year, we've already gotten together as a team a couple of times in person. And I think that really goes a long way to making people feel part of our greater goal.
That's awesome. Well, you're certainly helping my cause very much in terms of exemplifying what modern day marketing leadership looks like. It's a combination of areas of confidence, areas of fear, things we're doing right, things we're doing wrong, how we're leveraging yesterday's lessons for tomorrow's decision making. I love the emphasis that you are placing on accountability, where that should be lying in a business results, not a set of activities, and how it's a team sport. And these are all things that I'm trying to get on my soapbox about, but it's so much more effective when it's coming from leaders in great organizations. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing.
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Before I let you go, again, my guest, Kaitlin Monnahan from Seismic. I don't know. Do you have a question that you've prepared that you can leave for my next guest?
Yeah. On the topic of everything we've kind of talked about, I'm curious to understand for the next guest, as a marketing leader, what's one thing you have not yet done that you've wanted to do and why? And I ask this because our industry is ever changing very rapidly. I put a strong emphasis on, having time to be able to actually make my skills better as a leader. So I'm curious what other people have been thinking about in terms of their own kind of professional development, but what the blockers may be that they're encountering.
I love it. On that topic, and I'm going to ask that question, what do you carve out or how do you carve out time for professional development for yourself?
Yes. Great question. It's actually one of my goals for this year. Being so lean in the past and now actually having time to focus on not only my own professional development, but development for the team and colleagues. I'm making it a concerted effort to chunk off probably about an hour and a half on Fridays on my calendar, to read, participate, talk, things like we're doing today, and be, talk to more like-minded leaders to understand what they're experiencing, challenges they're seeing, if they're similar to what we've been talking about today, how they're overcoming them, and just, finally making some dedicated time that I think is much needed.
Well, I'm glad I could be a small part of your goal fulfillment because it is Friday afternoon. This is about an hour block of time, and you're contributing very meaningfully. So, again, thank you very much for giving us a small glimpse into your way of playing this great game of marketing leadership.
Of course, Caleb. Thank you so much for having me.